Is there any, burning questions that anybody has had from any of the presenters today? Yes.
Yeah, so with ticket grids, I used your wallet, right? J2, whatever it was. Do you have plans for connecting with, any of the other big DSP wallets? Or I'm thinking about how, in reality, does this thing scale to the public? Right?
I'll answer part of it, and then I'll let Bryan maybe give some other insights. So, very, very great question, and I'll kind of refer back to even a statement that Luke made earlier. So we have a single blockchain, like we have a single internet, right? So when you take and you have a secure digital asset, you're able to transfer it between your different wallets, which is, again, you control those assets and those wallets. Not all wallets are going to be interoperable in the sense of just playability, right? It's not so much because the blockchain won't allow it. It's just the being able to enable either a more closed garden experience, whether for the so-called protection of your or the more further enjoyment of your consumers. You might make your platform so uniquely customizable that maybe Omniscape might not necessarily see a ticket in the same way that we want to present it in our platform. So you have the ticket, but we might present it in a way that is, has all sorts of backgrounds, as far as the presentation of the asset, whereas Omniscape's apps, Robert's app, his assets, they might be able to be dropped in our concert, and so we're working together with Omniscape to allow at live concerts assets to be dropped in the middle of a concert, so you can go and grab a drink that is available in the middle of the field. But not every app is going to be interchangeable. Ticket's future will probably enable a lot of these transferring between wallets too.
So yeah, just to follow up, because I'm not sure my question was clear. Is there a plan, for example, to integrate with Cash, just to make it even a little bit more interoperable, quote unquote? I get what you were talking about. It wasn't exactly what I was asking.
I totally agree with you. I would love to see tickets available across any platform, no matter what. Interoperability is key. I think where we are, again, at that tip of the spear of seeing where this technology is, it is very difficult because you have these walled gardens. And, Handcash is a partner of ours as well. And, I love their UI. I love the things that they're doing. But they don't actually have the necessary components that would make ticketing for NFTs. They have no way to display those NFTs. So, in the future, hopefully, that they're able to kind of also offer these type of upgrades to their own wallet. We do make it a point to kind of work with, obviously, many people in not just the BSB space, but outside of that BSB space, to make sure that there is an atmosphere of interoperability and interdependency. It's a co-opetition, right? And I think that as the technology progresses and more of these walls are torn down, because that's really the key of blockchain. It's, just as you heard me state, whether you're talking about an enterprise or government that needs to remove those data silos to allow for the interchange of data and finance settlement, that allows a lot more efficiency, a lot more productivity. But to answer your question, I do see in the future to where these assets are on chain. Your ticket is on chain, and it's only just a different overview or overlay network that is being able to pull that information from you. And yeah, I definitely foresee in the future all wallets or many of these major wallets being able to show any type of media, NFT or or movie. Yeah, exactly. Great question. Anybody else with another great question? Yes, sir.
Well, like a lot of us, I've grown up in a world where there are video stores, music stores, places where you can buy hard copy media. Are we looking at a near future where hard copy media will completely disappear? Obviously you say vinyl is still coming back to a certain extent for collectors, but for the mainstream companies or even individual companies who are creating their own product, is hard copy material disappearing?
I'd love to just answer this and I'll pass it along because I know we probably all have some great answers for that. For Ticketman, some of the motivation was because of the digital age of music, you no longer had that vinyl album that you could go and relate to the artist, right? That you never had that, now physical tickets sitting in your Apple Wallet, so you don't have that Woodstock, framed ticket above your mantle. So I think it's a mixture of both. I mean, we really thought about this in a way of how do you give that connection back to the artist or to the group or to any group. So I do think that the digital twin aspect of having a physical asset as well as a real world asset is something that actually comes back. And it's just that ability of, taking a piece of vinyl, creating, an actual digital rights inside of that. And, now you have that physical property back, but you also have a digital twin that allows you to have, access to that type of, enriched media or an enriched experience, right? I may not have to take that one Wu-Tang album that came out that only one person has in the world, but I don't have to carry it around with me, right? I have a digital twin of that I can share the music of the rights that I own that music. So I think that there's a lot of interesting ways that blockchain enhances and brings back some of that, connection that you would have, whether it's an artist or whether it's, the physical ability to access a network or, any other industry that blockchain really empowers people to kind of have that connection.
To answer your question directly, I don't think it's going to go away completely because there's still a very large contingent of sound enthusiasts who want to hear it in its purest form. And the fact of the matter is, compressed digital versions of these MP3s and MP4s, and even with lossless audio, doesn't sound anything like a CD or vinyl. It still doesn't. But the problem we have is that, especially as an intellectual property creator, I want people to hear it how I created it, how I heard it. But most people don't care. As long as they can hear it on their phone, they're fine. You can see it with just how they manufacture cars now. I mean, I was surprised in February when my lease was up and I got a new car. I'm looking all in the trunk. I'm like, "Where's the CD player?" And the guy was like, "Are you kidding me?" You know what I mean? He said, "You have a phone. You can stream everything." I said, "Yeah, but it doesn't sound the same." I have a library at home of thousands of CDs that I still carry my little bifold or my little pamphlet full of CDs and everything. It is dying slowly. But the fact that we can do digital twins and stuff like that will still be able to appease those who are the sound enthusiasts. So, but more and more, as technology grows, I think we're going to get closer to actually being able to match the fidelity of the actual streamable, digital content. I think that's the direction they're going in more than bringing physical, product back.
Well, part of the talk today is about these new artists, future artists who want to have more control over their property and be their own entrepreneurs. I'm trying to think of what they're creating. It sounds like they're not going to be creating CDs for the future. Most of their stuff will be digital.
And it's cost. The idea of being able to put your stuff into digital format and stream it is a whole lot cheaper than packaging and barcoding, the physical product.
Right.
So the economy of it is pushing more people towards just pushing it out and evolving with technology. But one of the major problems we've had as a music industry all this time is that we weren't willing to embrace and evolve with technology like the other industries were, i.e. the gaming industry and the movie industry. The music industry was pretty much maintaining. We're the big behemoth. We're the only show out here, and we're going to do exactly how we want to do it. And a lot of people have alluded to Sean Fanning and the advent of Napster. He actually tried to come in and talk to the powers that be and say, "Listen, I'm not trying to steal anything from you, but just think of the idea that now you don't have to go and manufacture all these CDs and then spend further costs to get them out to these different arenas. You can send it out immediately around the world." And they were like, "Get out of here, kid."
Well, the technology was great. Sean Fanning tried to justify it on the grounds that I'm not causing infringement But the reality was it was peer-to-peer sharing. That was the issue. It was not just distribution. It was, hey, I bought this song. I'm going to share it with 200 of my closest friends. And now they all own it, and the artist is not getting paid for that. The songwriter is not getting paid for that. And obviously, the powers that be.
Trust me, I'm not fighting for Sean Fanning.
No,
because that wasn't the point I was
but the
making.
technology was really cool. Obviously, I'm in the gaming industry also, and I think I'm a big technology guy, and I want to see this stuff happen. But to answer your question, I do think, I mean, if you look at the charts, I mean, CDs have just fallen off, okay, and it's replaced with streaming. And I like, and I forgot how you referred to sound enthusiasts or purists. That's code for because, we got that vinyl, and I think it's gaining in popularity for sure, but if you're a millennial, if you're a Gen Z, or you're like, what's a vinyl record?
Yeah.
For the most part, they are growing up with this digital technology, they're growing up with streaming, and I think, frankly, physical products are going to go the way that cash is going to go. Ultimately, it's going to be replaced by some form of digital product.
I think as far as the distribution and publishing, physical is dead, right? I saw a news thing earlier this morning that some guys somewhere got a new fiber optic chip, and they were able to basically push the entirety of the data that's happening on the internet at any given time. They could transfer in a matter of seconds over a fiber cable. It's like crazy. So physical, I think, is dead. But completely different perspective. My very first business, back when I was in my early 20s, was a comic book store. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And for a short period of time, I worked for DeviantArt. You guys are familiar with that awesome art community. It's director of prints, so very physical. So I think that, and I'm also a hardcore gamer. I can't tell you, when I was in high school, I'd save up my money to go buy the box with the map and the floppies or the discs. Yeah, right? So that was me growing up. And and then I got smart because I couldn't afford games, so I would go in with a buddy. I would get the discs, he would get the manual, or he'd get the manual, or he'd get the discs, then I would get the manual and the map and the box, right? That was kind of how we shared things. But I think that even though everything is on demand instantaneously, now it's going to be so much more so, in the near future. There's something about the experience, the physicality, and the tangibility of something, whether it's music or a game or movies or a book or content or whatever. The bigger, broader experience, you have to stop thinking about things in terms of publishing and distribution, and more in terms about the marketing or the experience or the engagement that a consumer is buying. It's like, I'm a huge anime fan too, I'm a geek, right? But I can certainly read the manga, the printed version, and I might go out and collect it. I might spend hundreds of dollars on resin models, but I could just easily go and watch the animation and be done with it, stream it in Crunchyroll and whatever I've done. But I really like it. I like to show off what I have. When people come over to my house, they always see little Star Wars ships on the wall or some Tron toys, or I'm so geek, I should be admitting all this. But that opens up conversations. But if everything was only digital all the time, you wouldn't see the record collection, you wouldn't see the movie posters, you wouldn't know anything about me, and I would live in a white, sterile cube. So I think the opportunity for brands and musicians, and certainly the greater ecosystem of artists and engineers and product designers and illustrators and graphic designers and all of this sort of stuff, is to be thinking about, whether it's a music or a movie or a book or whatever the content and the IP, what are the multiple channels and the multiple ways that we can reach people, and then supplement and augment that digitally. It's more than just a file. Give me a video, give me some spatial sounds, give me something printed. Let me be the guy that buys the cool, prestigious elite thing. Like NFTs are great, but let's not forget about the physical, cool, one-off. I have the only one of this, or I've got, one of 10 of something. I think that's important. And I think that younger audiences, as they get older, they're going to start looking back and they're going to try to find the old vintage albums, records, but they're also going to continue to want something to show off and have that physical tangibility. Because you know what, sometimes a hurricane comes through, you have no power, and you still want to hug your records.
Like, go out and find me a Blockbuster video or a Tower Records or a GameStop, they're all gone. Those are all the physical distribution outlets that exist, they're just gone. And I, like you, I have a huge... You can't buy physical product of gaming anymore. It exists. There's some GameStop still there. I'm like you. I have a huge movie collection at my house, but it's like antiquated at this point, and it sucks because I like the physical product.
At the CES show 2 years ago, Alicia Keys came on and said, "I want to talk about the new Amazon HD music." and it's the best. You know, she said, my husband always comes up to me and puts the phone in my ear and says, hey, listen to this. I can't hear that. I want to hear a better quality sound. Well, I don't know what happened to that at this point, but there was something, obviously, wave files, and they were calling it HD music. Everyone was like, hey, this thing is a vinyl album. I don't see it as being a big marketing point because kids are the ones that make the decisions on what music is to be bought between the ages of what, 10 and 20. They're the ones that start out with the music and what the industry is going to be like, whether it's older stuff or newer stuff.
And they're not as interested in the physical product.
They're not. No, but if the quality is there, I believe that will make a little bit of difference, personally.
I was going to add that I think that you're right, and that we're seeing a new change in media consumption, in content creators. We're seeing content is king, right? You always hear that. So YouTube influencers, if they don't have a new video out every day, they're afraid they're going to fall off. But what it makes me think is you have the ability now to capture or facilitate these new young artists and their creative strides. Dutch pointed out before that, and Keith pointed out that Justin Bieber was a kind of an anomaly because he kind of got through and now he became the new factory kid, right?
So signed a record deal after he became famous, right?
Yeah. So, but he signed that record deal, but then everyone was imitating him, right? Or as Dutch pointed out, the A&R guy department that didn't exist. We're simply trying to replicate. Whereas you have young kids who are the creators of new creative thoughts, and they could, through this medium of blockchain, not only publish it, but then allow streaming per second, per thousandth of a penny if they want, for a penny per second, or they could just do likes, and they can get a penny per like, and so they could really gauge how the audience is enjoying. Because currently, right now, we have likes, or dislike, or thumbs down, thumbs up. But there's anyone can do that. It doesn't cost them anything. But if you have a little bit more engagement, and you're able to have these fans say, "Well, it's worth me paying a thousandth of a penny," but I'm not going to pay a thousandth of a penny for a guy I just feel like saying like. I'm going to be more conservative in my opinions and my judgments. So it allows real numbers and real trackability of new content that's coming out. And I think that David's right, that certain people are going to pay a little bit more for that content that's a little bit better quality, as Dutch pointed out, and will pay that extra penny. So it's not a lot of money, but it's an extra penny just to get that higher quality.
And when you're speaking in pennies, that would probably be the case for sure. But a good example to note is when Tidal, at the inception of Tidal, the other streaming platform that came out, and they took all of the premium artists and got them all together, and they tried to sell the idea that we're going to offer you this streaming service at a much better quality, so we want to charge you a little bit more money than what you would pay at iTunes or a pay tier on Spotify or Pandora. And a lot of people look at them and they look at them as elitists at that point. They were like, so you want us to pay more money just to hear it better when we can hear it fine over here? And that's what we're up against. That's the conundrum that we're up against right now. And Robert, I understand what you were saying about physical, but it's only us enthusiasts who are concerned about that. You know what I mean? The general consumer, you talk to most of them, as long as they can hear it, they're fine.
If I can add something about the physicals and this younger generation right now, we need to acknowledge that the shift in the perception between us and the younger generation is so huge that it's hard for us to imagine what they can do and what they will accept. From what we see right now on the market is that younger generation, they will have no doubt about that buying the music in a digital format, in an NFT. For them, it's going to be the collectible. This is the generation that was growing in the digital realities. They are used to paying huge money for digital items in games. They are used to already seeing the music concerts in games like we saw in Fortnite. So they will have no doubt about buying the digital product. And what even more, the labels and distributors that we are talking with, they are not concerned about this as well, because their statement is, if we can sell something on the people, like sell something physical to the people, we for sure can sell the same thing in a digital way. They have no doubts about that, and that this is actually the future, and that digital music distribution through NFTs is going to be even more powerful and more potent than what we've seen in compact discs years ago.
Yeah, just simply to add to that, I think the quality of the products are better. You know, when you are able to bring an entire value chain of people, just as you guys described, you know, you can start to bring, branch out from beyond just, say, your immediate audience. I can bring the hairstyles into the metaverse of my favorite punk rock band. I can bring, that digital art to, back to those albums, even if they are digital. And so that's a more enhanced experience for, the listener, the fan, to be able to participate in it, really intimately know these bands or groups or rap artists or whomever it may be, and entertainers of any like. And so I do think that the quality and the distribution of that really is enhanced by the ability to attach micropayments. And if there's one movie that you have, and then you also have everybody from the gaffer to the screenwriter to everybody else, the producer, the actors, all within this, distribution of that universal source of truth, then now you can start to see where, not only is there the transparency, but there's the economic incentive, as this movie is distributed, they're all getting paid in real time. And there's also this universal source of truth that they can draw back on. So I think it's really important to consider, as Michael said, the complete change in the idea of what we're consuming today is digital art or digital music or digital entertainment, digital media, to what it could be in the future, that we're just, maybe our brains on the Generation Xers, so maybe our brains have kind of spun out of that imagination, and I do think that ultimately will be defined by this next generation.
Excuse me, but I have a question from the older generation group. How is BSV going to work with conversion rates and foreign currencies? How is that going to change? If I'm buying an NFT from Poland and I'm paying US into the system, how is it going to convert to his money and my money?
I'll speak to the BSV blockchain piece of it, and then I'll let some of the other guests speak to their portion as well. So Bitcoin SV or blockchain in general is technology like the internet is technology. We have one internet that is to be the most stable technology that we can create for the efficiency of data transfer. Blockchain enables this same type of single protocol to allow the most efficient transfer of data and finance. So when we're speaking about transferring of data or accounting ledger, then that can be an accounting ledger for any currency, any platform throughout any country. Now when we start introducing value transfer, BSV, that remains the same whatever country you're in, translate into the currency of your country. But if you're using things like stable coins on the BSV ledger, then you gain all the efficiencies of scalable blockchain technology with the ability to maintain a stable price of whatever currency that you are transferring.
This particular question has cost me a huge amount of irritation, anxiety, and my accountants hate me to death. So when we try to sell somebody something like some virtual real estate or digital goods, virtual goods, whatever, let's say it's $5. I take PayPal, I take credit card, I take BSV, I'll take anything. I would take chickens, right? It doesn't matter. But at that point of that commerce, it's I want $5 worth of whatever it is that you're paying me. So in the case of BSV, we'll check, whatever the local, current going rate is. Say, okay, here's how much BSV we want, equal to $5. Now for you may have spent $1,000 for that 5, or you may have spent 20 cents. So it's currently valued at 5, but it may have been more or less for you to buy it. And so now we've had an exchange, and I have $5 worth of BSV sitting in my account. Now the question is, when do I convert that into dollars? If I wait, it's going to go up, or it might go down. So $5 now could be 10 tomorrow, or it could be $1 tomorrow, or it could have been 10 when you bought the BSV, or vice versa. So this is a challenge for us dealing with cryptocurrencies, with valuations that go up and down. And it's like, even for my accounts, are like, well, when do we actually recognize this as sale and revenue? Is it when we got the BSV, or is it when we converted it over to dollars, or is there some other magical voodoo? Which I say, I don't know, I'm not an accountant. Long story short, we check what the current rate is and make the transaction there, and then worry about the actual conversion.
Just one more point. For Ticketman, as an example, we are able to issue tickets for an event immutably on the ledger, so it's absolutely guaranteed yours. It's your digital asset in your wallet. But we utilize other payment methods such as Stripe and PayPal, different things like that, which are the same as any other platform that you would use. It's that we're using the blockchain to guarantee that you have that authenticated ticket. So really, there is no difficulties. It's the same as you've always done. It's just bringing in a new, efficient means of digital asset ownership.
I can tell how we are guaranteeing this 1 cent of payments to the music distributors and to the business in general, because business is cautious about taking the risk of having the cryptocurrency in their wallet. So we had to figure out some strategy for that, and we found this strategy. So right now we have a lot of, I would say, startups growing up on the market. One of them is, for example, Sardine.ai. It's a group of they used to be a group of Revolut engineers, and they built the competitive solution to the Revolut that basically services all of the currencies in the world and all of the cryptocurrencies in the world. So we enable people to get into the system. So on the in and out. On in you can top up with any cryptocurrency or currency. On the like getting out of the system, you can change it back to any currency, but of course, as a customer, then you have this like price change risk when you actually are sitting inside of the BSV ecosystem. But these kind of providers are also providing the solutions that are mitigating the risk of changing the price. So each time someone is streaming their catalog and is paying this 1 cent, we are actually time stamping this very moment and forcing that the distributor is actually getting his 1 cent. The BSV part is being immediately sent to our payment provider, so they have their own liquidity procedures, so they are not losing money on this. And by time stamping every transaction and the dollar price of the BSV at the moment of the transaction, we can enforce the proper revenue distribution to the distributors. And that's how we are doing right now.
It seems like it opens up a lot for cost plus models, especially Soundoshi. Like if I own, like you broke it down really cool. Like it's like I own a digital version of the CD, and it's like if there was a cost plus model, I could order the vinyl of that. It's like I own this. Let me pay extra $25, and you ship me out. Maybe it creates a different company, but ship me on vinyl, right? And then on the Omniscape side, I believe there is one Blockbuster left. It's Alaska or Portland, Oregon, or something.
Yeah. By the way, there's I think a new streaming show coming out called
The Last Blockbuster. And I see a lot. I see a theme here. It's nostalgia, right? It's about this new technology, and nostalgia is the cost plus model. I would pay a premium, me, the film nerd, go on Omniscape, put my goggles on, go walk through that Blockbuster, right? And and it's like I would do that. I would walk through the aisles, every aisle, and I would look at all the new movies, and I would rent it and just watch it on my glasses or take it off and watch it on the TV. So I think the nostalgia creates cost plus model. That's just
and also to add to the, not only could you have, if you had a niche vinyl market, you could have that same thing with a film. If there was something that you love to stream regularly, you could still have a copy of that if you wanted sort of the director's cut or something physicality that you wanted at home that you could showcase.
Yeah, you could almost get an alert saying, hey, there's a 4K Blu-ray available with this now. You watch this movie 50 times, you want to own it? You know, I'd be like, oh, I do, with all the bells and whistles. I think that's what I see growing here on the stage is the technology of young kids. They just want things streamable. But us, the older generation, we'll pay a premium. I'll get a vinyl sent in the mail. I'll go walk through the last Blockbuster and
Portland, Oregon, rent the movie, and then watch that, take the glasses off, watch the movie on my 4K TV at home. I think that's the pattern I'm seeing. So.
Yeah, to add to that, I always like to revert this technology back to the infrastructure, right? I mean, again, there's always been this heavy focus on the cryptocurrency side or the financial side. But ultimately, this provides a new infrastructure for all of these new generations to basically build upon on having those enriched media experiences like you're describing. But imagine, it's a cost up, but it's actually more efficient and costs less. On the internet today, because of the reliance of trusted third parties, you are not able to sell something for a penny, or 20 cents or 25 cents. Actually, you'd be lucky to sell something for less than $1. And so when you start to power this, data economy that we're living in, where data is no new oil, now you're going to start seeing, just a lower cost of participation. And if you want that enriched experience, you have that ticket. I went to 5, of my favorite groups' concerts, and I can verifiably prove that. Now I have access to, say, a superfan store where I have exclusive access to physical items that I can purchase, an album or a t-shirt. Now you can prove that you're the super fan, but I can also do this due to this infrastructure. And it's the pipe work and the plumbing of turning from this legacy model that really puts our data at risk. Again, I'll relate just taking an Uber, over the last 5 years, could have cost you way more than that Uber ever cost you, just even one time. Why? Because 35 million records were hacked, and those records make their way to the dark net where they're bought and sold on a daily basis. And so that's your information. You're the consumer. And that ultimately costs you money, whether you took that Uber once or not. So I do think, again, looking at it from the plumbing side, the infrastructure side, where you're creating these new efficiencies, you're creating new productivity, and you're also creating new revenue streams. And, that is something that most in the, crypto space or crypto casino or blockchain in general have really overlooked at what this technology provides.
I have the original handwritten and copied music for over 1,000 songs. It's 180,000 pages with all the players playing, including the singer. And I have not been able to find a way to make that cryptography or the security of that digital picture so that somebody couldn't just go out and do something whatever they wanted with it. But I haven't. So, when somebody sings the song "If You Leave Me Now" by Chicago, and they're music people, and they're like, wow, there's the hook, and there's the whatever. I don't even know music, so I would love to find a place that is secure that those pictures, those whatever you want to call them. I don't know what that is yet, but he's going to figure it out.
The Smithsonian.
But also, the cost plus for Soundoshi. I'm a Chicago fan. You license the Soundoshi, the NFT rights to that, those pictures, right? What you have. And Soundoshi, they notify me, they go, we have 100 NFTs of this image you have. Do you want it? And they cost plus model. And I believe that's a fix there. I don't know.
Yeah, that's how.
Yeah. So talk to my fellow. Yeah.
Any other questions? Zemi?
Great discussions and great presentations today. I felt everything was inspiring. I think there's something, the reason why we talk about blockchain in relation to the music industry is just one example. It's something that's going on quite fundamentally during the last 10 to 20 years, maybe 15 years, is really this contradiction between the physicality and the digitality. These two things are contradictory, but the last 10 and 15 years, there are two different things happening to somehow to bring this together. One is the IoT, the Internet of Things. That is basically an attempt to bring digicality, add digicality onto the physicality. I hope everyone's good. You add digitality onto physicality. But at the same time, we have blockchain going on. Blockchain is doing the opposite. Blockchain is really adding physicality to digitality. The reason for that is we enjoyed all the convenience of digital world, but clearly there's a problem. The digital world has a problem. I heard a comment a bit earlier. The music industry had a bad relationship with technology. Well, that's really is because the digitality is problematic. It's too easy to copy. Physicality, if I give you something to you, you are 100% sure I no longer have it. But how do you make sure that happens with digital things? That's blockchain, what blockchain is doing. Blockchain was able to achieve that. You have a digital thing, but at the same time, the thing has physicality. Means that you give this to somebody, you're 100% sure I no longer have it. It's ability to transfer ownership rights without making a copy of things. Actually, no, it's more than that. We're able to transfer the ownership at the same time with guarantee that a copy is not made. So that's the thing. That's why I think that it's not just the world is not moving from physical world to digital world. I think that's incomplete. It's really we're witnessing a merge between the physical world and digital world. I heard Rob Rice was making a comment. He thinks that the metaverse, the key for that is the connection with the physical world. I think that's absolutely right. And I think that's the point of the Facebook Meta. I mean, they don't understand it. They think they can create a digital world, so that's a new economy, a new world. It's not going to work that way. It has to be connected with the physical world. Otherwise, ownership, everything, you have no basis to claim. So that's just a comment I want to make.
I got one comment related to that. I think it's kind of interesting, something I've been thinking about lately. There's a little bit of a weird phenomenon. Something happened a long time ago. We were doing sort of paper song bottles or stores that came up. They would sell an individual song for a certain amount of money. And they ran into a lot of trouble. And this is also when kind of music piracy was sort of at its peak. And I think it's because, partly people are finding that, hey, I've got to pay for everything, but people like to have maybe a huge variety in their music collection, right? But how much of that are you listening to on like a daily basis? It's a small portion, so people don't really feel connected to the value of like buying all of what they want to have available to them and then only listening to a small sliver of it. They feel like they're not getting enough for their money. And this led people to pirate music, in sort of unprecedented levels. And it was very easy to do because of things like BitTorrent or whatever. But I guess what I want to comment on, making sure people are aware of here is that, blockchain's a double-edged sword, just like the internet is, right? Like the internet brought the ability for these markets to exist, but they also brought the ability for the piracy to become very easy. And blockchains are different. In fact, the ability to store full songs, images, and things like that on the blockchain means that people will be able to get them very easily. And if we're not careful, we try to push people back into this pay for everything sort of model, we may encourage a new wave of piracy that may be very easy to do because of blockchain technology. And this is where, when you heard me talk about what we're doing with Jamifieds, I'm trying to focus a lot more on the periphery of that, the things that are not piratable, like a discount merchandise or something like this, and letting people sort of share the music a lot more openly. And it's only because I don't have a clear answer for that. Like, yes, you can digitize something. Yes, I can listen to it. But if I can get it to come out of my speakers, I can record that. And it's not going to have the same exact hash as another file. So it would be indetectable that way. I can just make a tiny change and the hash changes. And so
It's not easy to get that fingerprint. We have audio analytics software and all this other stuff, but the point is the blockchain doesn't care about a lot of that stuff, and you can interact with it directly, and we're certainly not going to expect miners to like not mine transactions that have certain media in them, or that would be totally overreaching. It's almost like saying an ISP is going to prevent you from sending an email because it has music as an attachment or something. That would be like an overreach. So I just want to put that out there. There's some nuance here, and it's still, in an area where sort of locking down something that can be infinitely reproduced is a contradiction. It is difficult to have models that are built around that because people can break those models by just copying the stuff. And so it's kind of like, how do you find things that really fit better into the way that people want to consume this stuff, and how does monetization look in that world, and where are we headed? It's not super easy to see, but there's a lot of possible paths and a lot of new challenges too.
I have a question about the music files. Are they, with both your platforms, are they actually stored on blockchains?
In our case, yes.
It's your Soundoshi as well. Is the quality, how is the quality when you stream from?
There's a few different ways that this can happen. So right now, with Bitcoin SV, transactions are limited to roughly a 10 megabyte file size. Anybody familiar with like MP3s knows that that fits pretty much every MP3 with decent quality. That limit is very temporary. That's pretty easy to imagine that would go up considerably, and we'd be able to put things like podcasts and everything else comfortably in a single transaction. There's also methods for chaining transactions together to increase that size. So you could do things like, this is what I mean about how do you strike the balance between what people want out there and then what they want to separate, what they want to pay for. Low bit rate music might be okay for free streaming, and then we say, hey, if you want that higher quality stuff, that's encrypted in this file, and you need to pay for it. And it's all about incentives, right? We saw the piracy sort of really drop off because of streaming platforms existing where everybody's paying a monthly fee and they have this huge catalog. So they didn't need to go out and pirate all these other little things that they're going to listen to once, every few months or something like that. And so, maybe there's new ways that we do this where it's a hybrid of both of these approaches. And maybe there's some free tier that's on there, and then you pay to get something a little bit more, and then nobody's going to bother to pirate because everybody can get the free tier, and it satisfies the fundamental need of just, I want to enjoy the song right now.
Well, Spotify does have a free subscription model, and that's the very fact that's lowering the revenues that the artists will receive, because Spotify pays something on the order of, they have a pool of 10.5% of their revenue. That's the deal they worked out. And that revenue gets smaller and smaller as people keep getting freer and freer subscriptions. So that depletes the pool, and that depletes the royalties that are payable to the artists and songwriters.
But you can imagine how that changes also when you think of, you want to read one article, it's in the New York Times, and it costs you $32 for that month, and I'm not paying it. Or, but if it costs 10 cents, and again, that lowers that cost of access. It definitely changes the models, and it really takes, innovative people to kind of think of how best to present that, how best to get the engagement. But it comes down to content is king, right? Instead of you being the product, right? Whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on, other social media, you start to now become empowered to be that content creator because you're being rewarded for it. And so it just changes the incentivization models that we're just used to now, and hopefully for the better.
One point on your comment there. That totally makes sense, right? Like if people are not paying for the service, they're getting a free tier, like the revenues are going to go down to the artist, and that's because there's no other way that they're making money. They're making money off the streaming. So if you're giving that free access, you're cutting directly into it. But what this technology kind of lets us do is gives us new products that can be sold that supplement or maybe even exceed what's lost there. And that's kind of what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking if I'm letting people stream low bitrate stuff and then selling them other things or giving them other opportunities that owning that NFT gives them access to other things, a more direct connection to the artist, which is one of those things that people really want, that artists also want. Maybe the artist ends up making more, even without the charge for streaming. And that's, total theory. I mean, we don't know. These things don't exist yet, but that's what I'm exploring.
I mean, that's a fair point and a good point. I think, I've always referred to this as the democratization of music, right? Like anybody can put their music up there, make it available, stream it, digitize it a lot. And I saw one statistic up earlier that said 70% of content creators are not making music on these various streaming platforms. And you can't, but the thing is, I look at that and you can't overstate the fact that possibly 70% of the artists just suck, okay? And they're not selling the content. And I agree, content is king, but I can tell you, the old record label, look, and I saw a lot of things, because I agree with some things on there, but the labels certainly have their preferences, and they know who they're going to market, and they favor certain artists. But I can tell you, what we used to do at Geffen, for example, for every 100 artists that were signed, about 2 of them actually got the attention of the label. 98 of them were shelved, and those 2 artists sold enough that it paid for the signing of the other 98. The point is, for every John Legend that's out there, there's 99 artists that just are not good. And that's part of the thing when you're going out there and streaming yourself. Hey, I want to make money being a recording artist too. Nobody would listen to what I'm writing. Definitely nobody wants to listen to what I'm singing. I'm just not good, right? I mean, and so you have that, and that's why, again, the traditional model tries to filter these people out so that there's not a whole bunch of white noise. And I'll just mention the last thing. We talked about, there's the last time I looked, this was a few years ago, there were 5 million artists streaming on YouTube, streaming music on YouTube. That's a lot of white noise. How do you make your way through that? If you're the artist, how do you rise to the top? If you're the consumer, how do you find the artists that you like? And yeah, there's algorithms and all sorts of things out there doing that, but it's a tough place to be in if you're trying to do it all yourself, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree, but I would like to add something. Okay, of course, 70% of artists, or even more of them, are not making money just because they are not as good as the other ones. It's true, but it brings the question if they really deserve to be underserved then. Because even on Spotify, for example, if this guy is generating 1,000 streams per month, okay, we can agree that he's gonna get nothing out of the Spotify as he's not hitting the thresholds and so on. But still, if we would introduce the direct paid model, he would be able to earn this $10. And okay, here it doesn't make any difference because we are living in a first world country. But we have the unit in Nigeria, and I can assure you that in Nigeria, this $10 as the additional money being earned per month by these artists is making huge difference for them, and it will incentivize people in these regions to actually follow their dream and try to become an artist and try to get through, become better, and start competing with the top players in the industry. And this is the change that we want to bring. It's not about ripping off money out of the top, because they will still get their money. Drake will still hit 400 million streams per month, and he's gonna still get $4 million, or I don't know how much, but he will still get his money. But at the same time, all of the guys that are too small right now to make it through will get at least some reimbursement and some incentive to actually follow this dream and then try to become an artist.
All of these things that they just talked about speak directly to my passion. And my passion is I want to create a space where artists can become the CEOs of their own brand. And with all of the arms that we've talked about today, each one of them can be instrumental in that goal. For instance, if an artist is the CEO of their own brand and they're taking the independent route and they use, like, say, Luke, from what you were saying, you were able to listen to music. And back in the day, they used to hand out singles for free anyway in the legacy model because they were doing that to get people engaged. They wanted them to hear the album. That would hopefully bring them in to come and buy the album. With the advent of Ticketment and the NFT technology, what artists can do right now on a much larger scale, because it's not as dependent on a physical person sitting in a seat anymore, is they can sell millions of NFTs that can exist in an Omniscape arena, where they can actually go to a concert and see a show. And if you were to do it that way, the music just becomes the pull to bring them in, but they still make their money. They still make their money. That's what I was actually talking about when I was talking about creating this economy within an economy. What was the other one? Where you can go in that space at that point becomes endless, because you're selling an experience at this point. The music pretty much is already free. It's already free. That, my dad, God rest his soul, used to always say, "Son, that turd has been flushed already." It's one of those instances where we've already dealt with that part of it. To try to come in and re-educate people on why they should spend money on something that they're already getting free is going to be a difficult task. So the shift that comes in is, okay, let's sell them a full, encompassing experience around this artist. The whole idea of fandom was around someone who wanted to be like, walk like, talk like, look like, and be a part of this person's whole existence. That part hasn't gone. That part hasn't gone away. But the consumer has gotten smart, and their whole thing now is, well, what do I get? That's what we hear now in all the panels that I've been able to speak on with the Performance Rights Organization. I'm actually with CSEC. I know you said CSEC.
I didn't want it.
Okay. But that's right. But that's what we're getting back. People want to know the consumer now, because of the interconnectability of the internet and how connected we are with social media, and they're hearing all these different stories. They're saying, well, if it's free, what do I get? I think it's the nature of them to think, okay, if this is what you're giving me, what more can I get? So at that point, I think we can actually, and I think you and I spoke a little bit about it just last night, if we're able to sell that experience, a VIP experience, a backstage experience, a meet and greet, certain signed, paraphernalia or whatever that goes along with this particular project that can go to my super fans, all those different types of things, that still ends up being real money to the artist, and it creates a living for them. Because what they're trying to figure out right now is, since people aren't buying music, what else can I do? And they're doing apparel deals, they're doing fragrance deals, they're doing all different types of makeup deals and all that kind of stuff. And if you're fortunate enough to bring enough people in a venue, you can make your money with touring. But as you said perfectly, there are 5 million artists out here. You know what I mean, trying to do their thing. So it's not going to be the one size fits all solution for everyone. But what I want to create with everyone up here is something that gives them the ability to actually broadcast themselves and go out there and at least have a good shot at it. You know what I mean?
One quick thing to add to that, and I agree completely. I think that's where I see the shift. And you see the same thing with like Patreon, right? You get these YouTubers, they spend all this effort and energy to build this kind of channel, and then it's only a small group of people who fund this person through things like Patreon and stuff like that. Everybody else is just watching the videos. They're just enjoying it for free. I think that's become very common. But I want to mention one other force that's at play here with the music industry that I find interesting is, just as a casual music maker myself, it's actually become incredibly, I don't want to say it's like so easy to be a musician, but what I'm saying is the tools that are available and the sound libraries that are available for you for like samples, things like this, it is really easy to put together, instrumentals, things like this that pass the smell test to the average person, and they think you can make music a lot quicker than you used to be able to. It used to be a much more grueling process to get that right sound, and there was so much less available to you in order to do that. Now think about how that plays into all of this. Now you have all of these people who are competing to be in that top little sliver, right? But now it's even harder to sort of get in there because everybody's got these tools available. The whole bar just kind of goes up for people, and there's more people able to compete for that spot, sort of thing. I don't have any particular thing to say there other than this is another force at play.
But that becomes a good thing because it makes you have to be worth your salt, right? To be in this conversation. And people can't just say, well, I'm going to put it out and become famous. That's what happened with YouTube. Everybody thought, okay, if I can broadcast myself, I'm going to be famous, I'm going to make a whole bunch of money. And the harsh reality is, like you said, you suck. You know what I mean?
So without any technology, my father wrote between 5 and 6 hits a day at Capitol Records, and it was nothing. You could write a song in 20 minutes and record it in less than 30.
And you see the passion sitting here with these people is involved in wanting to better humanity, right? Whether you want to empower somebody in Uganda with being able to share his music globally and at a price that people can consume, and also help that person change his entire life.